So when they received the law of God, they prostituted the law of God and used it in order to boast of themselves and not to see their own failures. Here's what he says: seeking to establish their own, they did not subject themselves to the righteousness of God. That those two usually go hand in hand. And then he says, this is very important, for Christ is the end of the law for righteousness to everyone who believes. There's always this misunderstanding about the law. There's always this battle within the faith of those who say the law has not gone away. The law is still somehow involved in the life of the believer. And yet the Apostle Paul continues to say things like, Jesus is the end of the law for those who believe. They usually hang their hat, those who say the law is somehow involved, they hang their hat on Jesus' statement where he says, I did not come to abolish the law, but to fulfill it. And they'll say, if he didn't come to abolish it or make it go away or to destroy it, then it still exists. And because it still exists, it's still somehow useful for us even as a believer. And the way they reason it is because the Bible, even after Jesus, in the New Testament has commands in it. And if God commands anything, he requires you then to follow what he commands. That's reasonable, isn't it? This is a real struggle for a lot of people. But then what does Paul mean when he says it is the end of the law for righteousness? He says, for Christ is the end of the law to everyone who believes. Listen to what he says. Up until you believe, the law is involved. He's talking about Israel, by the way, right? But once you believe, that's where the law ends with you. Can y'all see that? Because when you believe, the law will have ended for you. He didn't abolish it because for everyone else who's Jewish, who has not believed yet, it's still functioning in their life. So it has not been abolished. But it has, for everyone who has believed, fulfilled its purpose. Because the law was introduced to the nation of Israel to fulfill a purpose, and when it had run its course, it was no longer necessary. By the way, you and I have never had the law because we're not Jews. We've never followed the law. We've never had the law. It was never our law.